Hey kids, Flexing Teacher Weber here. I hope everything's going okay. Our next step in algebra is to take our use of like terms and the distributive property and use those ideas to solve more complicated math equations. The first step today is to solve math equations that just have the basic distributive property situation where you have a math equation that has parentheses. And what we're going to do is we're going to solve these in two different ways and talk about the benefits of each of those ways. So I'm going to draw a little line on my page here so that I can solve this equation in two separate ways. Now, I'm going to focus in on this. We have an equation here. This should look familiar because this involves the distributive property. 3 groups of r minus 2 equals 3. And like all math equations, we want to figure out the value of the variable r. So, using our knowledge of the distributive property, we could either use the short way or the long way to expand this expression and get rid of the parentheses. So 3 groups of r minus 2 would be r minus 2, r minus 2, r minus 2, and we can think of that as 1r, correct? And then we could group up those like terms, 3r minus 6 equals 3. And then this guy should look very familiar because that's a two-step equation with multiplication and subtraction. So then the next step would be to go ahead and solve this equation. Remember, we start with reverse order of operations, so we would add 6 to both sides. And we would get 3r equals 9. And then we would divide both sides by 3. And we would get 1r equals 3. Or even better, r equals 3. So that's how we combine like terms, the distributive property, solving math equations, all those sorts of things. The benefit of that is that uses things we already know, and there's really no negative about it except you can get larger numbers when you use this method. Now I want to show you a method that can be used strictly when we have a situation like this with parentheses in the question. So I'm going to move over. I'm going to write the question 3r minus 2 equals 3. And what I'm about to do you can only do when you have this situation with parentheses in the question. So remember, this means 3 multiplied by r minus 2. Well, we can do this. We could say, you know what? 3 groups of r minus 2, I'm going to simplify this by starting off and dividing this side of the equal sign by 3. And if I do it to that side of the equal sign, I'm going to do it to the other side of the equal sign. Now let's see what I get. 3 divided by 3 gives me 1 group of r minus 2. And on the other side of the equal sign, 3 divided by 3 gives me 1. Now really, 1 group of r minus 2 equals 1 is just r minus 2 equals 1. There's a simple single-step equation now. Add 2 to both sides, and you get r is equal to 3. And that should be the same as what we got on the other side, right? Now the benefit of doing it this way, you don't really see it so much in this question, but the benefit of doing it is that it reduces the size of your numbers so that you have really small integers to work with. Let's do another question. Doink. So we're going to do this in two ways again. I'm going to separate my page into 2 separate parts. There we go. And I'm going to do the first way by expanding the parentheses so that we have a two-step equation. So negative 2x minus 3 equals 12. That means the opposite of each term in x minus 3 2 times. So I'm going to have negative 1x plus 3 and and negative 1x plus 3. So doing the opposite of what's in the parentheses and doing that 2 times. Total up those like terms. Negative 2x plus 6 equals 12. Now we have a two-step equation with multiplication and addition again. The way to solve this is subtract 6 from both sides of the equal sign, and you get negative 2x equals 6. Then you have a multiplication situation, divide both sides by negative 2, and you get positive 1x equals negative 3, or x equals negative 3. That uses everything that we've been doing in this section. It uses like terms, it uses the distributive property, it uses solving equations. Perfectly fine to use, but there is another way you can solve this same question as well. So I'm going to write the question again. Negative 2 groups of x minus 3 equals 12. I'll focus in there. So what I can do is I can actually do the multiplication first. Since this is multiply by negative 2, I'm going to divide this side by negative 2. This is the only time where I can start off with my dividing first. And I'll do it to both sides of the equal sign. And you see what happens when you do this is you get smaller numbers to work with. Negative 2 divided by negative 2 is positive 1. Group of x minus 3 equals negative 6. 12 divided by negative 2 is negative 6. Now really, this is just x minus 3. One group of x minus 3 is x minus 3 equals negative 6. I can add 3 to both sides to finish this off. And x is equal to negative 3. And you'll see that that gets me the same answer in two different ways. You're going to want to choose the way that works best, but the thing about doing it this way is that you get smaller numbers. Now, you do have to be familiar with both ways, though. I'm going to end the video here, but I'm going to do one more video where I do a few more questions like this. So hopefully that's making a bit of sense. If not, watch the next video because I'm going to do a few more questions that have some more parts to them. Flexing Teacher Weber, out.